What's next for Goten in the Dragon Ball franchise? In Dragon Ball Super, I guess to be more specific. What is next for the second son of our main character of Dragon Ball, Goten? This kid, Son Goten. He's a half Saiyan, and he made his debut in the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z. He had a lot going for him early on. One, they made him look like a young Goku. Two, they let him have a little bit of a different character than young Goku, but he's kind of the same, kind of a little, I wouldn't say he's dumb, but he's a little naive. Sort of like Goku was. It was almost like they were trying to fill that gap. When Goku decided to stay dead, it almost felt like early on, before Goku decided to come back from the dead, maybe the original plan was to make the story center around this kid instead of Gohan, because he's older now, and a lot of shonen anime nowadays, or at least around that time, were kind of centering around children. And it always kind of did. It's just when they decided to make Goku an adult, then Gohan showed up. And then Gohan basically reached his pinnacle when he took out Cell. And then they decided to do another time skip. And I'm sure there was a lot of pressure on Akira Toriyama to have a child main character in the story. And Gohan growing up to be an adult now must have been a big change for everybody. And I think Akira Toriyama was like, well, don't worry about that. For one, we know we have Kid Trunks now, grown up as a, 8-year-old or whatnot. And now there's also this kid here, 7-year-old Goten. And Goten is already a Super Saiyan, and so is Trunks. They basically give him Super Saiyan off the bat in the story. Yes, he did a little bit of training with his mom, and he learned how to become a Super Saiyan very quickly. And the only explanation I've ever gotten was the fact that Goku was already a Super Saiyan when he impregnated Chi-Chi. And that's kind of the explanation to why Goten and Trunks had such an easy time becoming Super Saiyans. Because the genes have already been unlocked in their blood, in their legacy, and it was time. He didn't have to waste his time just trying to reach a form that was reached 2 sagas ago during the Frieza arc. It was kind of a cop-out, but it didn't bug me as a kid as much as it bugs me now because of how much work Gohan and Vegeta and even Goku and even Trunks had to put in, how much sacrifice they had to put in to achieve the Super Saiyan form. But then Kid Trunks and Goten get it like a toy, and it's a new form that they think is fun. But it didn't bug me as much the first time I watched it. Then Goten got to be in a big fight with Trunks in the World Martial Arts Tournament, which I remember being very exciting to see this go down, especially since they didn't get to finish the tournament for the adults. This was kind of the only full-fledged tournament in Dragon Ball Z that went from beginning to end. And Goten didn't win, but he came very close. It did show that Trunks was just a little ahead of him. He was a little bit older. So they did kind of establish that Trunks had a little bit more power behind him. Then basically Goten was relegated to be the fusion partner for Trunks, and they made Gotenks one of our first major fusion characters. Gotenks, who probably has had more screen time than any fusion that Goku and Vegeta have been a part of. Goten and Trunks' identity have become intertwined in a lot of ways. If you see one, the other's not too far behind. And it was kind of cool during the Buu saga. It was kind of cool in early Super. But now, the fact remains, Goten and Trunks were skipped over during the Tournament of Power. They weren't even somebody that could be involved against the fight with Universe 6. They didn't get to make much of an appearance when Frieza made his return. They fuse and they get their ass handed to them, either usually in Super Saiyan 3. That's another thing I feel Goten and Trunks did early on in the story, is they really wrecked Super Saiyan 3. They made it into a joke, into a parody of itself. Anytime that Goten and Trunks would fuse and become Super Saiyan 3, they'd usually get their asses handed to them rather quickly. And I think that kind of ruined it for them. Then later on in Super, when the Tournament of Power was going on, Goten and Trunks were forced to go watch Android 17's island of exotic animals, basically, and in the manga they got to fight against some Cell Juniors. At least that's what it seemed like. Nothing special. Goten really doesn't have much of a character. He never really did. He's a naive little boy who likes to play. He doesn't do a lot of serious training anymore that we see on screen. When it's kind of depressing. Especially, I think what's really holding Goten back is the fact that he's not aging up like Gohan and Goku did. He's just still a little boy. I'm not 100% sure how old he is at this point. But whenever they decide to age up Goten and Trunks going forward, what's next for Goten, I feel, is a new character design, new hairstyle. I think that Goku hair is really holding him back since Goku's alive. Before, it was kind of tribute to Goku, who decided to stay dead for 7 years. And now that Goku's back full-fledged and a main character, really never wasn't a main character except around the Cell Saga when Gohan kind of took the reins over. Goten kind of has no purpose and he has no goals, and that's just, what do you do with this kid? You don't even, I mean, even Tien and Krillin, two of my favorite characters in the show, Master Roshi, are getting bigger moments in Dragon Ball Super, which are very limited and usually involves them getting their asses kicked. But Master Roshi is getting more moments in Dragon Ball Super than Goten. Goten, one of the next generation that should be carrying this franchise forward. If you look at Dragon Ball GT, they didn't do shit with Goten there either. They didn't even allow Goten and Trunks to fuse. Goten became just a basic teenager who wants to go out on dates. And that was kind of cool, I guess, but it sucks because both Goten and Gohan aren't into fighting, and that's what this whole story is about, is martial arts and fighting, and now gods, and fighting those gods. And if Goten ends up just wanting to be a lady killer, like in GT, and doesn't have much interest in fighting and kind of is only doing it because his dad and his brother before him did it, it's going to get a little old pretty fast, especially since he's not developing. He's got zero motivation to do anything. I've never seen a scene where Goten was begging his father, who's been around now for a while, to train him, to teach him how to become stronger. I'm sure if Goten was able to get Goku's attention, he could get him to train him, to teach him this God Ki. Could you imagine if the show actually allowed Goten and Trunks to learn how to control God Ki and have the red hair? Or what have you. Or maybe Goten just learns how to go Super Saiyan 2, for God's sakes. And I'm not saying they need new forms. If they want to keep Goten and Trunks intertwined as a unit, as a singular soldier for hire, and they want Gotenks to really be the main fighter as the fusion between the two, well, the two parts of that whole, I believe, need to go off on their own. They need some time apart. They need to decide what they want in this world. Future Trunks has so much going on, so much character development going on for him. Kid Trunks feels just like a tag-along like Goten. They feel less than. They have nothing going for them. They haven't developed since the Buu saga, many, over 20 years ago. And it's sad. It's very sad. You almost feel like the character should never have existed, especially Goten. Trunks at least can say, well, the future me is badass. And that's kind of cool, and it makes me think that I can be like him one day. But Goten has nothing. There was a point during the story of Dragon Ball Super when they first showed images of Goku Black that a lot of people, including myself, thought that there was a possibility that Goku Black was a future version of Goten turned evil for one reason or another. There's a lot of paths they could take to make Goten into a villain. Maybe his body was stolen and they used it. Or maybe he was manipulated. Maybe he was sick and tired of his father neglecting him. And he became so powerful and so evil. Could you imagine if it was Goten instead of Goku Black? What a much better story that would have been. What if the future Trunks that came back during that arc, during the Goku Black arc, was the Trunks that we know. Kid Trunks grown up into another apocalypse, but not caused by the androids this time, but caused by his best friend, Goten, who turned evil. How often does Dragon Ball ever take a good hero, a baby face, and turn them into heels, into major villains? I really can't think of any. They're usually villains that turn into good guys. I think it would be something of a change of pace if Goten had turned evil, or a character had turned evil. Goten needs something like that, some major moment to happen where he's got to step up. His father, Vegeta, Piccolo, Gohan aren't going to be there to save the day every single time, even though somehow they are. These other characters like Goten, like Oob, like Marin, even Bola, Trunks, Pan, they are the future of this franchise. Whether they want to admit it or not, if they ever want to skip forward in time and allow these other characters to grow up, it's going to mean that the old characters like Tien, Krillin, Roshi, Yamcha, Piccolo's still pretty young. He could probably keep going for 10, 20 more years. But those other humans, they're running out of time on the clock. The fact that they're still being used in fights is amazing to me as a fan of them. But at the same time, I think their time was years ago. They don't develop any more than Goten does, but they don't have the potential that Goten has. Goten was basically born a Super Saiyan. He was born with a high power level, similar to Broly, who was born with a high power level. For some reason, he was the chosen one, the legend. Maybe Goten is a prodigy that just hasn't had the proper training because he's not seeking it out. He's still a child. He doesn't even get the mental development like Gohan did from his mother, who made him study constantly. And now Gohan is a strategist during fights. While as Goten is really a headstrong child that runs into fights cold-cocked without any pre-planning whatsoever. Fusion and then get your ass slapped quickly. And it gets a little old. A little faster than you would think. You know what would be really cool is if Goten went off and got some training under somebody like Master Roshi. What if Goten and Trunks goes and trains under the turtle hermit Master Roshi? I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Goten and Trunks are stronger than Master Roshi, but they do not. And I believe this wholeheartedly. They do not have the skill that Master Roshi has. Could they beat Master Roshi in a fight? Probably with sheer power. But through skill alone, Master Roshi could probably hold his own like he did with Jiren during the Tournament of Power in the manga. Master Roshi was able to dodge a few punches from him, and Goten ain't shit compared to Jiren. Goten hasn't seen the real war. He's seen his mother be eaten by Boo, but he's always had this safety net of the Dragon Balls bringing everybody back. And I think that's been a detriment to his development. I think it'd be interesting if Goten and Trunks split up. They don't need to be together anymore. Goten says, I'm going to go do what my father did before me. Trains with Master Roshi for a year. Wearing super weighted clothes that would be beyond what Gohan... Do the same type of training Goku did. Learn physical fighting techniques. Then move on. Go train with Piccolo, the one who trained his brother. Learn the techniques from Piccolo. Then maybe go train with Tien. That'd be interesting as well. Trunks goes and trains with his father. Trunks goes and finds a way to train with future Trunks. I don't know. There's options out there for these kids. Eventually leading to these two kids training with Vegeta and Goku and Beerus and Whis. That's a thing that could happen down the line, people, if you just give them the time to develop. Maybe take the spotlight off Goku and Vegeta just for a few episodes. Let Goten and Trunks get some real training. Let us get some nostalgia with the Turtle Hermit School opening back up. Maybe the Crane style if they decide to train with Tien and learn some real martial arts. Not just shooting Kamehameha waves. Not shooting a Gallet gun. Not fusing. Learn how to fight on their own. So then when a major villain shows up, maybe some of his lackeys won't stand a effing chance because Goten and Trunks are here to save the effing day, fused or separate. And when they split up and their time runs out, they aren't useless. They can hold their own. They can fight. Maybe they never fuse again. I doubt that because that's kind of their whole shtick. But maybe it's time to give them a little development, especially Goten. Trunks has future Trunks to lean on. Goten has nothing. He has literally nothing, no relationships with anybody besides Gohan and Trunks. And really hasn't talked to any... He's trained with Piccolo for the fusion, I guess, but he hasn't really had real martial arts training. Very little leading up to the World Martial Arts Tournament during the Buu Saga, but that's really it. He did get to do some martial arts with Chi-Chi, who learned from her father, who learned from Master Roshi, so I guess it all kind of passes down, but it's not the same as truly training with the master of the Turtle School, or with Piccolo, the man who taught Gohan everything he knows, basically. All in all, I think Goten's a good character. He just needs some development. He hasn't had it in a very long time. And either use him or give him a purpose other than fighting. Because him just hanging around and fusing and getting their asses kicked is just so boring and old at this point. It's an old hat, trick, joke, and I'm over it. I'm over anything Goten does. I really hope that they take the spotlight off of Goku and Vegeta after the Granola arc and they do a time skip, or maybe they give us some side stories with these other characters like Goten, and let Goten grow, or let him find a new passion in life that we can all love and adore as well. Maybe he does just want to be a normal kid, and that's fine too. Maybe he wants to be a baseball star like Yamcha. We just don't know, because no one ever asks him anything, and I don't think that's right. And I'm Mr. Morfetto, and I think that what's next for Goten is he needs to get some real martial arts training. And he needs to grow up, for God's sakes. Please comment down below. What do you think should happen to Goten going forward in the story? Subscribe to the Mr. Morfetto YouTube page, and I'll talk to you later.